Alright, for today's video, I'm going to do something a little different. I'm going to talk about Smash 64, a game I really like. I never liked Melee at all. I know a lot of people, for most people, I think that's sort of considered the pinnacle of the series. Felt really off to me. Just the hitboxes, the feeling of it just felt non-functional to me. And I really like Smash 64. It's the first one I played. I gave Melee a serious try. I've played a little of Brawl. I'm not saying I'm particularly good at fighting games. I'm certainly not. The single fighting game I got best at is probably the much maligned and not very good, but I really enjoyed it, PlayStation All Stars. But I can't claim I was particularly good at that either. Um, my main problem for Super Smash Brothers is I just can't Z cancel remotely reliably, and to be any good at the game compared to good players, you have to be able to Z cancel very reliably, and I am incredibly unreliable at it. In fact, calling myself unreliable is probably being far too flattering to myself. So I'm not going to claim any like knowledge or expertise of the game aside that like I was one of the better players, close to the best player among my friends, and later in as a kid and later in life I watched some videos to do more advanced techniques in general play and tried to execute it a bit, and that's probably more effort than most people have put in, but less effort than anyone who's like any good and made serious tries at the game has put in. But what I want to talk about today is who is the Smash 64 GOAT? Because I think this is actually an interesting and weird discussion because there's a consensus pick, and we may conclude the consensus pick, but there's a lot of directions you could plausibly go. And part of the reason is that there weren't very many big tournaments. There were some in Japan and some in North America, but there weren't many big tournaments that brought people from multiple places together until the mid 2010s. And there also wasn't too much online play. I'm not sure when the online competitive play really started, but let's also say it took a while for there to be much online competitive play. And so the first great of the game is a guy spelled Isai, pronounced Isaiah, and Isaiah is a North American player who went around finding other communities and really helping other communities, going to Mexico and South America and helping get people involved, helping get people get the equipment they needed to play. He went to Japan. His favorite thing was 12 character battles, where you each have 5 stocks on each of the 12 characters. And, like, say for game one, I pick Luigi and you pick Mario, and say you beat me and you have 2 stocks left. Well, you start the next one with Mario with 2 stocks left, and I move to my next character, and it only ends when someone has killed all 60 opposing stocks, 5 stocks on all the other 12 characters. And I believe all time he has lost 3 matches of this. Um, one to a pretty current player, though I forget who, one to the player who was the best early Japanese player, and one to someone else. But he's also won a ton of matches of this and is widely considered the best in this format. And it's really cool that he's that good with all those different characters because most competitive play rewards like who's the best with the best character or with the best characters. And instead, he's really good at all characters. And that's going to be a continuing theme with him. But he's also the person that because he went to these different communities, there starts being some connections between them. And I think that starts to set up the possibility of more organized competitions that include a lot of the great players rather than just a few. And Isaiah is generally considered to be the best in the world from sometime in the early 2000s until the early 2010s, possibly still after that, but certainly in that period. I also want to stress at this point that Isaiah also played Melee, and we're going to start to get the reputation of Isaiah here. Because in Melee, he was on a 2v2 team with a guy named Ken, who, if you know anything about Melee, which I basically don't, but if you know anything about Melee, you know Ken is the early super like god of the game. And there end up being some other greats afterwards who are probably bigger. I think Melee has 5 gods, and he's considered one of them. Probably like fourth or fifth of the gods now, but he's the first of them and just so dominant in 1v1. And when he played 2v2, where he was also very dominant, Isaiah was his teammate. And there are some quotes from that time of him being like, yeah, Isaiah carries us. Like, Isaiah is the star of our 2v2 team. And it's easy to assume that the guy who was really 1v1 dominant is also the 2v2 star. And I wouldn't know. I haven't like looked at the games, and I don't know if I could judge them well if I did. But it's worth noting he regularly really said Isaiah is doing a ton of the work here. Isaiah also was really successful in team competitions where each team is like 5 players and the first 2 face. And if you win, you survive, and the next person has to beat you until we get to the ace at the end. But you have to have won a match. For a person to be knocked out, they have to have lost a match to someone on the other team. And Isaiah would frequently get into spots where his team, like the other team, had 3 or 4 people left, and he was the ace, and he would be able to take down all of them. However, this incredible team and 2v2 success, and note the team stuff is 1v1, was where he was most dominant. Single player, he was never near as dominant. Very, very good, but not one of the super greats. And this creates a reputation of someone who doesn't always try. And when he has a team, he will try for the team and he will be phenomenal. And when he's playing for himself, he is not as invested. And it's kind of interesting if you look at like YouTube videos of Isaiah games in Smash 64 of matches he loses, all the comments will be like, "Yeah, he wasn't trying." Everyone kind of has come around to believe when he tries, he is the best player, and when he doesn't try, other players have a chance. And there are all these like Isaiah putting out 10% effort type jokes. Your mileage may vary with whether you find this convincing. I tend to be focused on what players have actually done, but for various reasons that we'll get to, I find this case for Isaiah more compelling than most. There's a lot of people who never quite have the achievement their fans think they should, and they come up with reasons why it doesn't count that they didn't get it, or why it count like they actually won even though they didn't. With Isaiah, I think we'll be closer to that being legitimate than it is in most cases. So our first great of the game is Isaiah. And in the early 2010s, we start having some bigger and bigger tournaments. Prize funds ranging from like a couple $100 to like a bit over 1,000. Nothing too big yet. We'll later get the biggest tournament. Will have prize funds larger than $5,000. They're not usually like all that big, but that's real money. But the prize funds aren't really what matter here. But we start having bigger tournaments, and bigger tournaments mean there's a bigger chance for people to come over from overseas. And the first few big tournaments is Isaiah does well. Isaiah wins 1 or 2 of them, of the bigger ones, and some smaller ones as well. But we get the rise of a Canadian player named Super Boom Fan. And this is probably where we should start talking about the tier list in Super Smash Bros. And you can Google and look up Super Smash Bros. Tier list. And we'll do Smash 64, because this is the one I care about. And we can go to the tier list page, and we can look at it. And it's changed over time. So here's the first one. No, this is the current one. So actually, let's see the past ones. And that's current-ish, because it came out in 2015. Here was the first one. They hadn't yet realized that Ness's recovery is terrible, so he gets moved down a lot. But let's skip to the 2015 one, because that's the most current one we have. I don't think this is current, but it's worth considering. Luigi was the consensus worst character. I believe this is still true. Link and the other 4 you'll notice are a bit closer together in score. Link actually had a kind of tournament renaissance in kind of early COVID era. So it's possible if there was a list now, he might be as high as 8th. I really don't know. Again, I don't have much expertise. My sense, based on tournament results, is he'd probably be considered around 8th now. That some tournament players were doing quite well with him in a period when a lot of the strong players weren't playing, but nonetheless, there have been a lot more Link tournament wins in recent years. The great early Japanese player, one of the few that has won a 12-character battle against Isai, Jusuke, he was a Samus main. And so that was an argument for Samus earlier, but I think he was just really good rather than Samus is all that good. In general, you can see we have Samus and DK in this tier, and to a lesser extent Link. It is hard to make heavies in competitive brawlers like this. Slower, stronger characters tend not to be that great 1v1, because you want a balance for both 1v1 and like 2v2s and free-for-alls. And if a heavy hits too hard or can cover too much space, they're going to be so good in free. Like, if they're good in 1v1, you will have had to have buffed them so much that they will be like insufferable in free for alls. Imagine a person with a huge area of effect attack. In 1v1, you might be able to work around it. In free for alls, someone's going to get hit. That character is going to be so good. So it's one of those things of like, if DK or Samus were top tier in 1v1, they would be broken, so broken in free for all. And I think this is just a general difficulty in designing games like this. And I like where Smash 64 ended up. This seems about right for them. Not the full worst, but not threatening to be all that competitive. Jigglypuff and Mario have seen competitive tournament use from time to time, Jigglypuff more so. I'm not sure that that actually says Jigglypuff is better, or just that people happen to main Jigglypuff that are really good. The very top players occasionally throw out a Mario, but there are Jigglypuff specialists. So I would say the best specialists of either of them are better with Jigglypuff, but you might still see better players play with Mario just because the very best in the world sometimes throw out Mario. But I think to this day they would still be considered sixth and seventh, unless Link has snuck into that tier, but I very much doubt that. And then we have a top five. Now, I think this top five is clearly out of date because Fox is definitely fifth. I'm not sure exactly why Fox is fifth. It might be that Fox would be better, but everything Fox does, Pikachu does better, and so there's just not much reason to play Fox. So it might be a thing if you don't see that many Foxes deep in tournaments, and actually Fox is really good, but there's just always a better choice that Pikachu just has better matchups and does the same or similar stuff better. And so there's no real reason to use Fox. Because you could definitely have something where, like, Pikachu's better than Kirby, but they do different things. Pikachu's better than Fox, but they do the same thing. That means some people will play Kirby because they do different things, but no one ends up playing Fox. That's one possible explanation. Again, if you know this game better than me, you probably know why. I also think Fox's moveset is just like he's quick and he's good, and nothing's quite that good. He doesn't have that much that chains together in crazy combo setups. You will see him in the combo contests a bit, but that's because he has a funny tool set that can do some weird things that isn't that practical to actual play. I think Fox is clear fifth, and I don't think any high level player would disagree on that. Then there's the big four, and for a long time it was the big three. And Pikachu and Kirby have the clear best matchups, which is why they are 1 and 2 here. The problem with Kirby is Kirby has a bad matchup versus exactly Pikachu. So, if most players or a lot of players are playing Pikachu, Pikachu is the best character and the most popular character. If a lot of people are playing Pikachu, is it smart to play Kirby? Kirby's really good against the rest of the field, but not so good against Pikachu. Kirby beats Captain Falcon, or at least has a good matchup, but Falcon has a much more competitive matchup with Pikachu. So one thing you will see is Kirby mains will often also play Pikachu or also play Falcon, so that if the opponent is a Pikachu player, they can switch to playing a Pikachu mirror match or Falcon because that's a better Pikachu counter. Falcon is a character that is great at comboing. He is much easier and more reliable at killing characters if he gets one touch on them than just about anyone else. He has his aerial up A's are fantastic at comboing. They combo into his up B. His back A aerial A can be a finisher. His up aerial A can be a finisher, not usually from hitting them high, but if you angle it right, it can knock them off the side. His leg kick can hit enemies out at different angles. His up B can finish. His down aerial A is a spike that can also end combos. And because he has so many different combo enders, Smash Brothers is a game where comboing is tricky because at different percentages, characters bounce differently. So having a lot of different tools that can finish a combo means they can be much more reliable at doing those combos, at executing them, and at getting them to pay off. Falcon is the best combo character in the game. However, he is very bad at getting on stage and easy to edgeguard. So if you can hit him off stage, it's really easy to take a stock from him. So he is sort of the most efficient at killing characters and one of the easiest to kill if you get a hit on him. And this ends up meaning Kirby, whose aerial down A, even for not very good players like me, is amazing at guarding. A spike that covers a lot of area and stays out for a while, so if you don't time it right, you still probably get the kill, is really good at facing Falcon. But Pikachu is not quite as good at edge guarding, and Falcon is a more competitive matchup. Also, Pikachu is the best at getting back on stage. His up B is very good at getting back on stage, and so Kirby's great edge guarding doesn't play as well against Pikachu. This is my understanding of why. I haven't done a ton of reading. This is mostly from my playing, but that's my understandings of how it works out. But you sort of have a triangle. If Pikachu beats Kirby, Kirby beats Falcon, and Falcon is competitive, not necessarily better than, but basically even with Pikachu. But because some people do play the lower characters, and Kirby has good matchups against them, Kirby is usually considered second. But if I told you the meta is almost entirely Pikachu's, you would move Falcon up to second and Kirby down to third, or maybe even fourth. Because Yoshi, I'm not actually sure of Yoshi's matchups, but Yoshi is very tournament competitive, has a really different skill set than others, has some super armor while jumping, doesn't have a third jump with up B, but has some super armor, especially at low damage taken, that lets them get through things or even take hits to set up combos on you. If they're in a jump, they can get hit by you and then hit you using the super armor and then starting their attack right after, like as your attack finishes, and can pull off some stuff other characters can't do. And Yoshi is very clearly the fourth super viable top level character. So I would say there is a big four. Pikachu is the best, but Yoshi and Falcon both are competitive with Pikachu, and Kirby would be the best if Pikachu didn't exist, but as is, you could argue Kirby second, you could argue Kirby down to fourth. So that's the tier list, and this brings us to Super Boom Fan, whose name you can see here. And Super Boom Fan is the second super great of the game, in my opinion, of the people kind of in the GOAT conversation. Super Boom Fan plays in North America and starts playing a lot of events and starts winning them at a really high rate. And Super Boom Fan spoilers will win more tournaments, both major ones and small ones, than anyone else. In fact, how Wikipedia counts premier or major tournaments, Super Boom Fan, I believe, has won more premier or major tournaments than like the next three on the list combined. Super Boom Fan is by far the most winning player in the history of Smash 64. Is he the GOAT? Well, the Wikipedia page says Isaiah's the GOAT and there's no conversation. I think there's a conversation. Super Boom Fan is incredibly winning. He tends to play Falcon, though it varies a bit by year. He has also played a bunch of Pikachu. It very much depends on matchups. He will usually be switching between Falcon and Pikachu, whatever he thinks is the better matchup, or he'll start with one, and if a game goes badly, he'll switch to the other. He has very good records against every North American rec player. He has a winning record against Isaiah, like 8-5 in tournaments, I think. But we'll get to the details on that. And he's played a lot of characters. He entered one major tournament playing whoever like a Twitter poll told him to play, and ended up playing like Mario and Fox because those are fun, interesting, and kind of underplayed characters. He's a fantastic player, and when Super Smash Con, the biggest Smash tournaments ever, started happening in 2015, he wins the first one, though it is almost entirely North American players. And this brings us to the next divide, which is coming into 2015, there are three communities. There is North America, where Isaiah and Super Boom Fan are the two stars. There are other great players, other people who probably deserve to be mentioned, but then this video will go too long. And those are the two in contention for GOAT. Then there's some South American players. I'm not quite sure he's that amazing yet, but he soon will be. So the best of South America is a guy named Alvin, who is, I think, early on maybe a Fox player, but quickly switches to being a Pikachu player. And for most of the period he's competing for top events, he is a Pikachu player. And they end up holding votes for who the best player in the world is, and he regularly finishes between second and fourth for the years they do it. At least like 3 or 4 times he's in that range. Great Pikachu player. I don't think he is a real case for GOAT. He doesn't end up winning a Super Smash Con, the big event. He doesn't compete in quite as many events. There are some South American players, more recently a guy named Nax, who might compete with him for being best of South America. He's probably the South American GOAT. I think he's not quite in the GOAT conversation, but really wonderful player, fantastic Pikachu, and I think he's played some Falcon too. Really great player, and South America is a really important and good community here, so definitely deserves mention. He's the one I'm most familiar with. And then there's the Japanese community. And they're going to be really interesting here because they hold a lot of tournaments in Japan. And at this point in time, Jusuke is no longer the best, the great Samus player. but now it's probably a guy named Wario, who is a very good, very precise, just has all the movement really under control. Like, even to someone who's not very good like me, really noticeable how just like precise it feels like every action of Wario's is. A great Pikachu player, and there's KYSK, pronounced Kiyoshiki, though I'm sure I'm not pronouncing it quite right. But Kiyoshiki and Fukaru are two Kirby mains who are really good, and I like Kirby. If you played this game as a kid, everyone who played Kirby like spammed down Bs, and it was really annoying. That move's trash. You're basically, when you miss, you can just get grabbed on the ground. It's not actually a good move, and good players will not get hit by it. But his aerial moves, his A moves are great, and as you get better, I like playing as Kirby. Kirby's my favorite character to play as. Though I had an antipathy towards learning Kirby because I was like, but all those noobs played Kirby and it was very annoying. And I used to play when I was a kid. I was Falcon and Yoshi, and I liked throwing out Luigi as well. I had fun spamming Luigi's down B. It wasn't good, but I had fun spamming it. And I would play games of me versus 3 level 9s on the spaceship level, the Star Fox level, and I liked doing that with Luigi a lot and Yoshi a lot. And I thought they were underrated. I was wrong about Luigi. I was right about Yoshi. And I was probably best with Falcon, but now I'm definitely best with Kirby. So I like seeing good Kirbys. So there's two really good Kirby players from Japan and a really good Pikachu player. But another difference between Japan and the US or North America is the game is actually slightly different. There's a thing called DI in Smash, which is when you're hit by a move and you're in a hit stun, you can still control your movement slightly. And if you mash a direction really fast, you can move slightly more in that direction than you would otherwise. And this actually allows really good players who have very good reflexes and button mashing speed to get out of stuff that kind of is a combo but kind of isn't. It's a game where there's combos where anything but inhuman reflexes it is a combo, but you might be able to escape with inhuman reflexes. And this is DI, and these great players are very good at it. And so it is harder to pull off combos against them than it might be in practice mode. Even if the combo meter in practice mode says this is a true combo, it might not be against perfect DI. So this is to say, DI is easier in the North American, the NTSC version of Smash than in the PAL version of Smash. And that could mean two things. Sometimes when something is more powerful in one version of the game, people in the place where it's weaker never learn to do it very well. We actually have the opposite here. The other thing that can happen is because it is a less powerful tool, they have to be so good at doing it to get it to work at all that they get really good at it. And the Japanese players have insanely good DI because they're used to doing it where it has so minimal effect that they have to be perfect to like have any chance for it to help, that when they come over to the American version and suddenly it works, it's more useful, it's better, they're really good at it because they're so good at doing so much with so little. I have a lot of respect for the Japanese players. And so the first Super Smash Con, Super Boom Fan wins. And actually, let's Google Smash Con 64 and head over there and look at the results. We'll go to Wikipedia. So we want 64, we're in 64, we're in singles. I don't want 23, I want the general series, yeah. Spoilers on who won that year. So, okay, this starts with the most recent, so let's scroll down. 2015, Super Boom Fan wins over Akira Kuropi, who is mostly a Pikachu player. Very good player, not in contention for our discussions. You'll notice much bigger prize fund than most have had, much smaller than Melee has, but, Melee is the really popular one. 2016, Super Boom Fan wins again this against Wizrobe, who is the best North American Yoshi. More players come this time. Really impressive win for Super Boom Fan. He has now won 2 in a row. Is he the GOAT? Well, some would say Isaiah has been the best for a decade. I think Isaiah played one of these. Maybe it's 2016. It might be 2016. Yeah, I think it's 2016. So this is a double elimination tournament, so you can go to loser's bracket and then fight your way back. In losers finals, Isaiah faces Wizrobe. And in the first game, he plays Luigi, the worst character in the game. And I think I'm going to pause the video for a second. All right, we're back. He plays Luigi, the worst character in the game. and he plays an incredible match. If you look up this match, it's beautiful. They were playing five stock at the time. Current tournaments, you have four lives each match, and it's a best of five. So he plays Luigi in the first game, and he four stocks the opponent. He has four lives left when he beats Wizrobe. Incredible. Uh, game two, match two, I think he switches to some completely different character. Isaiah's best with Pikachu. He plays Pikachu one of the matchups, crushes him with Pikachu. He ends up losing 3-2, losing with Luigi at the end. But this is why people with Isaiah go, he crushed him with Luigi. He crushed him with Pikachu, his best character. Then he goofed around with other characters and lost. But you can see why people would look at that and go, okay, he wasn't trying. When he's trying, he's unbelievable. And I think he is unbelievable, and he's doing stuff other people couldn't do, but it is worth noting. He did lose, right? And he may be more skilled than anyone has been, but I also think winning matters. Your mileage may vary. At the end of 2016, Super Boom Fan has won both Super Smash Cons and has been a more dominant tournament player than anyone else. Isaiah, on the other hand, is like the people's champion and has done these incredible feats no one else could do. Super Boom Fan beats Wizrobe 3-1 in the finals, but he beat him using the best characters. Isaiah, with Luigi, beat Wizrobe worse than any of those games Super Boom Fan won against Wizrobe, and he did it with Luigi, the worst character, the clear worst character in the game. Unbelievable. So who's better? I think Super Boom Fan incidentally knocked Isaiah into losers. I don't know if this was that year, but one year that Super Boom Fan beat Isaiah, Isaiah plays Pikachu the first game, and Isaiah wins. I believe Isaiah plays Pikachu in the second game. I know Isaiah was up 2-0. I think he played Pikachu twice, his best character. Then Super Boom Fan jokes, let's just play DK versus DK. Isaiah agrees. Super Boom Fan wins with DK, and then making it 2-1 in favor of Isaiah. Super Boom Fan switches back to his better characters, and Isaiah decides, I'm going to keep messing around with DK, and then maybe he switches to some other lower tier character, maybe Mario, mid tier, but not top tier. And Super Boom Fan ends up winning 3-2, but Isaiah won both games when he used Pikachu. So again, this leads to you can really argue this, because Super Boom Fan does tend to win, but Isaiah looks more impressive. But this is true not just against each other, but against other people. Boom Fan keeps winning these tournaments, and Isaiah keeps going out earlier, but also doing it in really cool and exciting and fun fashion. And I suspect it sounds like I'm pro Isaiah here, and I do enjoy watching him more. I actually kind of think it's probably Super Boom Fan. Most people go Isaiah. So when I say I sound biased towards Isaiah, that's most people's bias, I think. I kind of think Super Boom Fan at this point has won both of the huge tournaments, and it's probably him. If it isn't, it's because most of these tournaments were basically just North American, and maybe the Japanese players are underrated, but that would be an argument against Isaiah as well. All right, let's see what happens next. 2017 is the first year that Japanese players come over, and they dominate. Let's go to this webpage. Super Smash Con 2064. Let's go to the bracket. 2017 and 64. Let's go to the bracket. We can see Alvin goes out a bit early. This is before I think we have prime peak Alvin. Wangara is a top tier Jigglypuff. Great player. Wario is here. He ends up losing to Kurabba, but notice Kurabba also swept Isai and goes Isaiah. I always say Isai, but it's Isaiah. Goes on to sweeps Isaiah, sweeps Wario, and beats Super Boom Fan. You'll notice Super Boom Fan did come closer than those, but you'll also notice the only players beating these top Japanese players like Fukuru and Wario are other Japanese players. Super Boom Fan does not, in fact, knock out any of the Japanese top players or any of them, nor does Isaiah. And when we make it to the top four, 3 out of 4 are Japanese, and Super Boom Fan again loses to a Japanese player. And not only does Fukuru beat him, Fukuru beats Pikachu with Kirby, which is really hard to do. Okay, so, Pikachu's favored. It's maybe more a 60-40 than a 70-30 matchup. But this is incredible from Fukuru, and who goes on to reset the bracket and defeat Kurabba twice. And Kurabba is the greatest Yoshi player of all time. We'll come back to Kurabba. But this incredible run from Fukuru, um, and Kurabba knocked out Boomfan and Isaiah. Fukuru fully knocked out Boomfan, finished him off in losers. And Wangera did great. The Japanese players come over and they dominate. So I think at this point you have a new question. I sort of already spoiled it, but is Boomfan the best? Still the most overall tournament successful. He's still winning some other tournaments, including with Japanese participation. Is it one of these Japanese players? Is it Wario, who has been the best in the Japanese tournaments? Or is it Fukuru, who just won, the major in incredible fashion with Kirby? Is it maybe Kurabba, who knocked out both Super Boomfan and Isaiah, swept Wario? Is it actually him? I think, you know, it's unclear at this point. Are the North Americans better or are the Japanese players better? Or is it really close? Who do you got? Is it just Isaiah? Is he just the best? He went to Japan and did really well against them, but that was like 5 years before this. That was before the Japanese scene really took off. Who is it? Let's go to 2018. Super Boom Fan wins again. And this year, I believe Japanese players basically didn't come over. Like Prince is very good. He tends to win the combo contest. Wangera, as we said, is the best Jigglypuff. But we're not seeing Wario. We're not seeing Fukuru. We're not seeing Kiyoshi. Like Shizuko is good. I think he plays Link, maybe sometimes at least. But this is not the top tier Japanese players coming over. Alvin has a great run, makes it to the finals. Great Pikachu player. You'll notice Super Boom Fan plays Falcon when against Pikachu. Sometimes he plays Pikachu, it depends. You'll notice Alvin swept Isaiah, but you'll also notice Isaiah was messing around with Fox and did really good with Pikachu. Now, Fox is very good. Alvin sweeping him here is really impressive. But it's another thing you can point to of like, Isaiah didn't win, but he did go really deep, and he was switching to whatever character he felt like playing, while Super Boom Fan was consistently playing top tiers. On the other hand, Super Boom Fan has now won 3 out of 4 Smash Cons. So who's the best? Is it Super Boom Fan? Is it Isaiah? Or is it, let's say, Fukuru? Let's go to 2019. The Japanese are back, and the Japanese dominate again. Yeah, I think they're so impressive. Like, they don't play that many of the tournaments where you can compare them, but when they do, they're really good. Boom beats Alvin. You'll notice Boom switched to Kirby against Alvin's Falcon. Kirby has a good matchup, and Boom is really good at being good at all the top characters, so he can switch between them to whatever's favorable. Isaiah switches to whatever character he wants, but Boom switches between those top tier characters. But Kiyoshi beats him, just like Fukuru did, winning the Kirby matchup over a Pikachu, and he beats Kuro Kuropi as well in this matchup. Wizrobe is the best American Yoshi, Kurabba is the best Japanese Yoshi, and Wizrobe wins this round. But you'll notice Kurabba was able to knock out Wario, who still hasn't quite had that great run, but he is still dominating the Japanese tournaments. Our final 4, Wario comes back to beat Kurabba, sweeps Wizrobe, and then we have a really close finals, but Wario doesn't reset the bracket. This is actually Wario's best run, but Kiyoshi wins. You'll notice Kiyoshi, who has played Pikachu the whole way, Kirby the whole way, including beating, if we go back, Super Boom Fan and Kuro Kuropi with Kirby, he knows Wario is really dangerous. I don't think Isaiah plays this year. Isaiah's not a regular player. Against Wario, he switches to Falcon. So these are clearly 2 players that play against each other a lot in Japan, and he knew, I can play Kirby against the Americans, but maybe I can't against Wario. I think Kiyoshi's run with Kirby was the one that really inspired me to pick up the game and try to get better at it. Again, I'm not actually good, but Kiyoshi and Fukuru are the 2 runs I really enjoyed, and I liked how they played. And yeah, Kirby's pretty common, but not usually getting quite this far except for these 2. And again, Wario still might be the best Japanese player, and we keep seeing Kurabba go deep. Keep Kurabba in mind. And Wizrobe. Yoshi is pretty good. And if we've looked at these final 4 brackets a bunch, you'll notice we've seen Pikachu, a lot of Pikachu, we've seen Kirby, we've seen a lot of Falcon, we've seen a lot of Yoshi too. Only seen Fox when Isaiah switched to him, though he is best with Pikachu. Only seen Jigglypuff when Wangera, another really great Japanese player, brought him there. Never seen any Mario, and never seen anyone below that. Really 4 characters. Really a 4-character dominant game. except that Isaiah is just insanely good with everyone. Okay, so at this point, I kind of concluded I think the Japanese players might be better. And GOAT is really up in the air because Boomfan has the wins. Isaiah has just the like the magic, the like but he would win if he just played Pikachu. He keeps winning whenever he plays Pikachu. And the Japanese players have, whenever they show up, they beat the North Americans. In fact, like both times that the Japanese players came over with the top players, three of the four top four were Japanese, and they had both finalists both times. That's incredible. And that might just indicate that, sure, the biggest, most prestigious tournaments are North American, but the Japanese players are better. And then COVID hits, and the community kind of dies, and 2020 doesn't happen, and the online event is just significantly weaker. These are, Kira Kuropi is good, Josh Brody is good, but these are not players close to this conversation. But in 2022, it comes back, and I just learned about this recently, which is why I decided to make this video. But I was coming into the, like, a week ago, I sort of thought, that was a fun community I paid attention to once. I wonder who actually was the best. Because I don't know. I also saw that Super Boom Fan somewhere around here sort of retired, though he has come back since then, citing some tournament organization stuff. I think he might have also had some wrist or hand problems that make stuff hard. 2022, we have our first big one back, and some Japanese players, I believe, come over. Yeah, so we see Wario, but Wario actually goes out. Again, Falcon has a good matchup against Pikachu. Though Nax, I mentioned him as another really great South American player, and he ends up beating Alvin here. This might be a changing of the guard where Nax becomes the premier player. You'll notice Alvin manages to beat Isaiah's Pikachu, which is fantastic work. Isaiah, I mean, now has been top of this for 20 years, but Isaiah was playing really good characters this tournament, and Alvin manages to knock him out, and Nax beats Alvin. So really impressive for that part of the bracket. And the other part of the bracket, Kurabba almost sweeps. Kurabba, very good Yoshi. And we make it to our top four, where Kurabba beats Nax. Isaiah throws in a Jigglypuff here against Alvin, manages to beat Alvin in the rematch, but Nax is able to win a Pika v Pika against Isaiah. Now, I'm sure if you find this video and look at the comments, they'll be like, Isaiah was up 2-1 and stopped trying. And, like, maybe he did. But, like, really impressive from Nax. And Kurabba sweeps the finals. Really dominant run by Kurabba. This looks like in the entire bracket, he lost 2 individual games. Because I think, if you look at this, he went 3-0, 6-0, 9-1, 12-2, 15-2. That's insane. Fantastic work. Yoshi's great. And Kurabba does not have a very good record against the other top Japanese players, even though there was that year where he swept Wario. But I think a lot of that is from them beating him in like 2015 to 17. And he might be at this point the premier Japanese player. Keep an eye on that. Let's go to 2013 or 2023. 2023 is the return of Isaiah. And this is the one that for some people just makes it like, if it was a conversation at all, it's over. Let's look at it. Kiyoshiki is back, still playing Kirby. Switches to Pikachu to beat Wizrobe, likes the Pikachu-Yoshi matchup more. Wizrobe, very good. Also, I think good at some of the other Smash Brothers games, but again, I wouldn't know because I don't care about them. I just like Smash 64. Isaiah doing a little switching, but all between top tiers, and beats Super Boom Fan. Super Boom Fan is back from retirement, though I believe Super Boom Fan didn't run his main characters, Pikachu or Falcon, for this whole tournament, so that Boom Fan goes this far, and we'll see how he does from losers, but that he goes this far while playing, not his top characters is also really impressive from him. And then Isaiah sweeps Kiyoshiki. Really nice work. In the other side of the bracket, Kurabba beats Alvin 3-1, beats Kiro Kuropi, and sweeps Nax again. God, Kurabba's so good. And we make it to our final four. Super Boom Fan fights his way through losers. Kiro Kuropi actually beats Kiyoshiki here. But Kurabba 3-1s Isaiah. Boom Fan beats Kiro Kuropi to get a rematch with Isaiah. But again, Boomfan is not playing his best characters. Isaiah actually is playing his best characters. Isaiah sweeps him. And then, in one of the more incredible performances ever, Isaiah sweeps Kurabba to reset the bracket and then sweeps him again. He did lose this match here at the start of winners against Kurabba 3-1, but he was using Kirby there. And his Pikachu run here is he just won 9 games in a row against Super Boomfan and Kurabba with Pikachu. That's insane. And so once again, it comes back to when Isaiah tries, does he just win? But being the person who tries does matter to me. And also, I don't know. I mean, he played Pikachu the year before in a lot of his games, and he didn't dominate quite so well then. But, people go in and out of form. Incredible run by Isaiah. And at this point, because it's been a while since Boomfan has won and Isaiah is just on this crazy run, it might be easy to say Isaiah is at least the best from North America. And he did just beat probably Japan's best in incredibly dominant fashion. But I would note, Super Boomfan has still won 3 of these Smash Cons, and Isaiah's at 1 now, right? I still think it's competitive. And that brings us to this year, which is 2024. Isaiah did not play. Sorry, I guess last link to discuss this. You can see Super Boomfan is back to playing his main characters. He beats Kurabba 3-1 to send Kurabba to losers, and then he beats Wario 3-1, who had just beaten Wizrobe. Great run from Boomfan. Nax also doing well. Kuropi, I think, actually got better over the years, and I had sort of settled him as like, okay, he's 10th best in the world, it's fine. But the last few years, he's had some really nice results here, and I probably underrate him quite a bit. Kurabba survives losers, as does Wario, beating Nax, which is nice. And our top 4, Boomfan beats Kuropi. Again, he's on Falcon. Kurabba beats Wario, which he did, I think, 2 years ago as well. I think at this point, it's clear Kurabba is the best from Japan. He sweeps Kuropi, and in a really close match, this is really close. You'll notice it's 3-2 twice, and he had to win both, but he does. Kurabba resets the bracket, wins Grand Finals, and has now won 2 of the last 3 Smash Cons and finaled the other. And unlike when Super Boomfan won 3 out of 4 Smash Cons in 15, 16, and 18, Kurabba has done it in years with Japanese participation, rather than Boomfan, who only won in years with very low Japanese participation. So I think at this point, there are 3 people in the conversation. There's Kurabba, who I think overall, despite not having won as many tournaments in Japan, and maybe I should look more at what happened in those tournaments, in which case you might conclude Wario. But Kurabba has come over for 3 Super Smash Cons, or his last 3 Super Smash Cons, he has a win, a finals, and a win. The best 3 tournament run anyone's had. He is now the only person with multiple Smash Con wins other than Super Boomfan, and he won them in what I consider tougher years. He also had a great finals run in 2017, where he knocked out Isaiah and Boomfan and Wario, but went on to lose to one of Fukaru or Kiyoshiki. So I think Kurabba is now the greatest Japanese player and has had the most success in the era where the most players of different nationalities have competed. Super Boomfan still has the most wins, and while it's the most wins now 3-2 over Kurabba in Smash Cons, it's by a ton if you just add in any other tournaments with like decent sized plus prize funds. He has won hugely more tournaments than anyone else, and he's really, really good. Like when the Japanese players come over, he doesn't seem to win, but he also is still really strong, really reliably goes deep. Isaiah has some early exits. Boomfan does not. Boomfan goes deep. Boomfan has some less deep runs, though he still, I think, made top 4 when he wasn't allowed. And in fact, I think he came 3rd. Didn't we just see he came 3rd last year when he wasn't allowed to use his best characters? And when he does use his best characters, he's really, really good. And then there's Isaiah. And Isaiah is almost certainly the best in the world from like 2002 to 2012-ish, maybe longer. When he plays Pikachu over the early SmashCon years, like 2015 to 2018, he basically wins, no matter who it's against. But he doesn't play that consistently, and he throws in other characters and doesn't always win. He then comes back and wins 2023 SmashCon, finally winning one of the biggest events. And he does it double sweeping Kurabba and sweeping Super Boom Fan. He's like the man, the myth, the legend. If you knew he was going to play Pikachu and you knew he was like, I don't know, he cared or he was going to try or he was in good form, I don't know which it is, but you knew whatever it was, that was all clicking, wouldn't you pick him as like the champion of humanity? But also, if it was just, I'm going to pick a person and I need them to win this tournament, you should pick Boomfan. Boomfan has won way more tournaments and at a higher rate than anyone else. Boomfan will run Falcon and Pikachu, and he will play them really, really well. Something that really impresses me about Boomfan, and you start noticing this when you watch a bunch, is basically there are moves people never use. Like Kirby's down B I talked about. Good players almost never use it, and when they do, it's specifically to get out of situations and ledge grab. Like it's for very niche purposes. And you'll start noticing there are moves you never see, except for certain very specific circumstances when players have correctly integrated them. Super Boom Fan's Super Boom Fan's Falcon uses down B, a move that is very easily block punishable in situations no one else in the world uses it, where it works. And it's one of those things of like most players should just pretend this move doesn't exist because anytime they'd use it, it would be wrong, or the occasional time it would be right, are not worth the number of wrong times they'd mistakenly do it if they remembered they were allowed to use this move. But Boom Fan uses it so specifically in some edge guarding and some just weird you're on platform situations that no one else does and that are really like just this tiny bit of edge that he has. And it's one of those things you notice and you go, okay, this guy's amazing at this game because he has found these niche situations to use something that basically no one should use except him. But he is good enough that he can find the spots he should use them. It's really incredible. I probably have sounded less positive about Super Boom Fan than Isaiah or Kurabba this video, but it is to say, unbelievable player, great job, great to watch, you know. And I think that's the big three at this point. There's case for Wario. Fukuru and Kiyoshiki have also won Smash Cons. Alvin is great. Nax is great. There are lots of other great players, but I think it's those three. And the consensus is Isaiah, which surprises me because I feel like given just how much he's won, you'd think it would be Super Boom Fan. But the legend of Isaiah is really strong. What I want to throw out there is I think there's a chance that in a few years, if these tournaments keep happening, we'll just know it's Kurabba. That in the era of them all playing against each other, Kurabba will have done the best. And that if a tier list ever happens again, which it probably won't, because they came out with like 3 or 4 tier lists in a 3-4 year span and then none since for the next decade. Yoshi's going to be top 4, but there's a case for Yoshi higher than 4th. That would be interesting to see. Anyway, I think those are the big three. If I had to put my pick on someone, I know it just sounded like I picked Kurabba. I probably would just pick Isaiah. But like, my heart says Isaiah, my brain says Super Boom Fan, and my brain also says if you say Kurabba now, you'll look really smart soon. Now, how smart will you look when he's already just won 2 out of 3? But it feels like the person that has not really been considered as this, but like is in that combo. I think it's those three. If you've made it through this video, which I doubt many people have, who do you think is the GOAT of Smash 64? All right. That's my Smash 64 discussion.